This tutorial follows on from the previous one, which introduced the idea of regulation and control in living things. This idea that everything living needs to be able to take in information from its environment and respond appropriately so that it can survive. The two key ways that living things, especially complex living things, can take in this information, process it, and respond, or control the response, is through two specialised systems. One of these is the nervous system, which involves nerves, the brain and the spinal cord, and the other is what's called the endocrine system, which involves a system of glands and chemicals called hormones. These two systems are only found in larger animals, more complex animals. They're not found in plants, although hormones can be found in plants. So we want to focus mostly on mammals and their systems and how they go about regulating and controlling their bodies. We're going to do this in a relatively basic way as a general introduction to these two systems. So in this tutorial we'll focus just on the nervous system, and in a separate tutorial we'll focus on the endocrine system. So the nervous system is made up of two main components. It's made up first of all by what's called the CNS, or the central nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of two parts. It's made up of the brain, which is up in our skulls, and it's made up of what's called the spinal cord, which comes out of the brain and extends down through your backbone. So together, the brain plus the spinal cord make up the central nervous system. The second part of the nervous system involves all the nerves that come off the spinal cord. So there's a whole lot of nerves as the spinal cord travels down your backbone. Coming off the spinal cord is a whole set of nerves that go out to all the key organs in your body, all the major organs, and control their functioning. This is called the peripheral nervous system, or the PNS. Peripheral just means on the side or the edge. So the nervous system as a whole is made up of the CNS and the PNS. That's the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system is all of the nerves that come off the spinal cord that control all the major organs in the body. The nervous system itself is made up of many different kinds of nerves. And nerves are just bundles of nerve cells called neurons. And they act almost like, how would you put it, electrical pathways. So they are long cells. They're cells that have been extended out. So they're very long, and they carry electrical signals from one part of a body to another. They can take in information, receive information from the outside world and also the internal environment, and they can send information back to effectors and organs to carry out particular functions. So let's have a quick look at the two main kinds of nerve cells. First of all, there are nerve cells that are called sensory neurons. Sensory neurons typically look like this. So this is one single cell which has a very specialised shape. It's stretched out, so it has a very long section here, which is called the axon, and extending off the axon along its length is called the cell body. Now you've learnt about cells before. All the normal things about cells apply here. There's a nucleus, and you can see the nucleus here in the cell body. Cytoplasm extends right throughout the cell body and right throughout the axon. So remember, this is one single cell. So there's a cell membrane that goes around the whole cell, but it's a very specialised shape. So the long part of the cell is the axon. It has a cell body with the nucleus coming off the length of the axon, and at either end of the axon has these branching kind of receptors or branching ends that allow the cell to either collect information or pass on information to the next nerve cell in the chain. At one end of a sensory neuron there are receptors, which can detect stimuli in the world. So stimuli such as light or pressure or heat or pain are typical kinds of stimuli that can be picked up by the receptors. And at the other end you have extensions, axon endings that can connect to the next nerve cell in the chain. Sensory neurons or sensory nerve cells carry information in the form of an electrical impulse, so carry information in the form of an electrical impulse and this is very important, towards the brain. Towards the brain or the spinal cord. So they carry information to the brain and the spinal cord. So they are picking up information from the outside world or the inside of the body and carrying that information as an electrical signal towards the brain or the spinal cord. The other kind of cell I've got shown here, different kind of nerve cell called a motor neuron, carries an electrical signal or information from the brain and spinal cord back to a muscle or a gland. So it carries information away from the brain and spinal cord. And you can see it has a slightly different structure to the sensory neurons. It's still one single cell, so it's one cell in a very specialized shape, so it has a long extended section, again, called the axon, but its cell body is found at the end of the cell, not halfway along. It has nerve endings that can connect to the next nerve cell at one end, and it has a very branched set of extensions from the cell body that can pick up information from another nerve cell. So the key bit here is it carries information away from the brain, or away from the central nervous system, I'll say, that's the brain and spinal cord, towards muscles or glands. To wind up this tutorial, let's just look at the summary of what I've just talked about. So, the central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, receives information through the sensory neurons that bring information from the receptors that have picked up various stimuli in the environment, temperature, pain, pressure, etc. The central nervous system then sends out messages via the motor neurons to effectors such as muscles and glands that then help to bring about some kind of response. So you can see how this fits the stimulus response model. So there's your stimulus, there's your receptors, your neurons, your nerve cells carry the messages to and from the central nervous system to the effectors, which bring about a response. And this helps to control and regulate the way that living things work and helps them to survive in their environments.